Welcome to the Dental Marketing Summit series. My name is Mark Dilatush. This is Howie Horrocks. Howie is the CEO of a company called New Patients Incorporated. And Howie, how long ago did you start the company?
Well, it was 1989.
1989.
In Seattle. Worked with various different companies and then settled on exclusively working with dentists in about 1990. And then I think you came along a few years after that.
Later.
Mark is the Vice President of New Patients, Inc. And we're here today to share with you just about everything that we've learned about promoting your dental practice over the last 22 years.
Yeah, people ask us, we do these live events of the same summit series, and people ask us all the time, why do you do this? Howie and I are partners in the company, and we pretty much made a decision. We don't want any more than about 1,000 customers. We couldn't imagine having a company with more than 1,000 clients. And there are 151,000 dentists in just the United States alone.
That's right. Another 15,000 in Canada.
Yep. And we work in Australia and Ireland as well. So obviously there are far more dentists that require this information than we could ever touch ourselves. So the whole reason we're doing this is to take what we've learned in the last 22 years, organize it in a manner that makes sense, and share it with all of dentistry, so that if you should do your own promotion, if you should guide another company to do your promotion for you, you have the information you need to do it properly, because we all know what happens if you don't do it properly. Right? And then that drives you crazy, and it makes it so that you don't want to do any more promotion. So that's what we're going to try to avoid, and we're going to help you along that path. So what is it about what we've done in the last 22 years that makes us reasonably credible? Why would anybody listen to us?
Well, I think it's just that, 22 years of experience that we bring to the table. Not everything that we've done by a long shot has worked, but we've been at it long enough that we've tested and retested and continue to test all available mediums. Right up to this day, we're still testing. So there's quite an experiential track there. We know not to make the same mistake over and over and over again. And as an individual dentist out there, you're at a bit of a disadvantage because you don't have the time or necessarily the budget to test everything over and over and over again. So we've done that. We've gone through the learning curve, and we're going to share with you things that you can do and things that you should avoid doing, and hopefully we'll at least save you a whole bunch of money and grief.
The lessons, those are some pretty expensive lessons. When Howie talks about testing, let me put it into a perspective from a dental perspective. Almost everything that you do started with an idea, and then the idea was put forth, whether it's a new procedure, a new way of doing an existing procedure, a new material. Almost everything in dentistry started as an idea, and then it was put forth, and then it was tested. So there was research, and then there was testing. If the research and the testing worked, there was more research, more refinement, and more testing. This is exactly what we're talking about. What we've done is done all the research and all the testing on real live human beings in the dental consumer market. So there is certainly a correlation between clinical dentistry and the paths that you take with all your materials and all your procedures with the same path that we've basically taken over the years. This whole series is about laying everything out in a step-by-step order of understanding. So there are multiple segments to this CE series. There's no way we could do it all in one segment. You wouldn't want to sit down and listen to it all.
Well, normally it takes 2 full days in our live presentations to get through this material. Right. We're going to present it to you in a series, a multiple series here of little vignettes, if you will, or segments. And we're going to cover each topic one by one by one. And at the end, you should have a really good understanding of how to promote your own practice, or how to guide somebody that you might hire to promote your own practice. And hopefully you'll, as I say, you'll avoid a lot of the mistakes that we've already made 3 times.
Right. Now, the first segment is really the prerequisite. It's understanding the dental consumer. And before you do anything with your marketing dollar, before you even start budgeting for your practice, before you start allocating your budget, all of these things are things we're going to get into. Before you design anything, before you deploy anything, before you decide anything, before you market anything, you have to understand who you're trying to sell to and what matters to them and what doesn't matter to them, or what matters to them the most to what matters to them the least. That's the content in this first segment. Now, after this first segment, the second and subsequent segments, you're going to be asked to go online and complete a series of questions about your dental practice. Those questions are going to tell us, for the most part, how marketable your dental practice is, and then we will run market analysis data on your, usually a circle of about 6 to 8 miles around your dental practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to determine how marketable your area is, the area around your dental practice that you're trying to penetrate with your promotion. And then we're going to return to you via email a marketing plan, the framework for a marketing plan, the analysis data and what it means and how it's all supported with whatever you should be doing with your marketing budget. And then segments 2 and forward, you're going to use that marketing plan as a follow-along, only it's going to be specific to you. It's not going to be about everybody else. It's not going to be general advice. It's going to be very specific to you.
And I should say also, the content of the material that you will get, it could be considered to be worth the price of admission all by itself. In the end, you're going to end up knowing where the good patients are and how to reach them and what to say to them. It's valuable information, and you will get that at the beginning of the second segment in this series. And I should also, before I forget, tell you that as you complete, or when you are complete with all of the segments in this series, you'll get a free copy of our new book, Unlimited New Patients Volume 3. It's $167 retail value. You get it for nothing at the end. And you will also get continuing education credits as well.
So, let's begin. Let's begin with the dental consumer. In front of you, you have a picture. The picture is a person hired by a dentist to hold a sandwich board promoting dentistry on a busy street corner. And the question that we ask all the time, over and over again, is this really what it's come down to? In Las Vegas, where our corporate headquarters are, we see billboards all over town.
We just saw a couple on the way down here.
We just saw on the way down to the studio.
$100 extraction.
Actually, it was $100 extractions, and then it said any extraction.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it's your front tooth or your back teeth, or for whatever reason, or if it's impacted or not impacted, or a deciduous tooth for an 8-year-old. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Any extraction is $100.
Now, we're not commenting on the quality of the dentistry here, but it just occurred to us that, has it really gotten this desperate?
Right.
Is it this?
Right.
Really?
In some markets it is, obviously, because you would usually not hire someone to stand outside of a busy street corner to hold up a sandwich board with a price incentive to go see a dentist with a directional arrow.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't think, we know it doesn't have to be this way.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason why we're here. The next piece of material that you're looking at here is an ad. It's an ad in a magazine. This is obviously a self-directed ad. by the dentists that own the practice. You're looking at, I would assume, a fairly expensive ad. Look at the size of that ad.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
a pretty good piece of real estate. And if you look at the market, it's a very densely populated market, so the market cost or the media cost had to be pretty high.
Right.
But look at the ad.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, but I know about dental consumers, and
Yeah,
they don't wake up in the morning and go, "Gosh, I think I need to put some screws in my jawbone
right.
today." You know, that's not the benefit they're looking for, and yet this quite graphically, rather gruesomely, really,
Yeah.
depicts that. And Happy Halloween across the top. Why is that there? I have no idea.
Right. So if you get nothing else out of this series, don't put skulls in your advertising. And then certainly don't put a picture of a screw into the skull,
Right.
into your advertising. Among some other things, there are some other misspellings in this ad. It's terrible.
It's atrocious.
It's atrocious.
It's a horrible way. I'll tell you, the real crime isn't just with the art direction and the copywriting, although that's punishable by death at least. It lowers the public's perception of
That's right.
dentistry. You know, how valuable do you think dentistry appears to the person who's getting this ad, who's reading it? I don't think it just doesn't elevate the perception of dentistry. We don't like that.
Right.
And we know that you don't either.
So we know these don't work. But the question is, or the $9 million question is what will work? And that's the beginning. We're going to go through the first step today in this section, in this segment, is what matters to the dental consumer? That's the bottom line. That's where you always have to begin. So we ask you now, we want you to be a little introspective here. What do you think consumers feel about dental insurance? If you have a piece of paper and a pencil in front of you, it would be great for you to just write down the first thing that popped into your mind when I said, what do you think dental consumers, or how do you think dental consumers feel about dental insurance?
Right. Let's take a wild guess.
Yes.
You think the patient thinks that their dental care should be completely covered 100% by their insurance, right? And they're dismayed and go through various emotions to find out that dental insurance doesn't cover squat, really.
Right.
Insurance is probably not an accurate name for it. It's a prepaid benefit. It's a coupon.
Basically.
It's half off Crown today.
Right.
You know, it's $1,500 a year max. That's what it was 50 years ago. Okay, so we all know that there are problems with that. But in the mind of the consumer, that's probably what they're thinking.
Right. Now, what do you think the consumers, or how do you think the consumers feel about your prices or the fees that you charge? Normally, when we're doing these live, almost everybody in the audience, and this is telling because it's not telling right now, but you're going to get this in just a little while when we go through the material. Almost everybody in the audience says everyone that calls our practice is concerned about price, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody that calls my office is concerned about price. So it makes sense that the perception of the dentist and the dental teams believe that that's all that people care about, is price.
It seems to be that way, but it's an apparency, and we're going to get into that.
We're going to get into that, okay? What would be your take on the importance of convenience? Name some conveniences, Howie.
All the practices nearby. There's free, ample parking. There's easy financing.
How about hours?
Hours of operation. Maybe you've got Saturday hours. That's very convenient.
Right. Convenient financing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. There are plenty of companies out there doing that.
Yep. All kinds of conveniences. What is in your mind? What do you think the consumer? How important do you think it is to the consumer on the topic of convenience? That's what we're asking you to think about right now, because we're going to give you, if you can get those in your mind or on a piece of paper in front of you, we're going to give you the reality in just a few minutes here. How about technology? We know lots of dentists who go out and spend just
Mhm.
boatloads of money,
Mhm.
okay, on technology.
How important is that to the consumer, do you think?
Right. How important do you think it is to them before they choose you? Not after they choose you. That's another distinction. We're not asking you what your own patients think. They're already your patients. We're asking you about the dental consumers, people that have never experienced your level of quality of service yet. Not your patients, the dental consumers. What do you think they think about the technology side? Do you think they're interested at all? Do you think it matters at all? Do you think they understand it now? Those are things, write down on your piece of paper or keep in your mind where you think the dental consumer is right now when it comes to technology.
Right.
How about continuing ed?
Yeah, you're all very happy to take a lot of continuing education, which you should. It's great, and are actually required to by your state boards. But how important is that to the dental consumer, do you think? Is it vastly important that you went to LVI, for example, or took Ross Nash's courses and a bunch of great CE out there? Is it important to the dental consumer? And if so, how important?
Doesn't matter, right?
Right.
Another big one. It could be big in certain areas, may not be big in others, but how about the ethnicity of the dentist? What is your perception of the consumer's perception? That's what we're asking you. Do you think it matters, your own ethnicity? Does your own ethnicity help you or hurt you when you're promoting your practice?
Right, and a lot of dentists that we've talked to about this, who are concerned about it, they worry about it.
Yeah.
Am I only going to attract people just like me? In which case, I'm going to have a hard go of it. We've got some good news for you guys that have that concern, and it's coming up. What we're going to do is take a peek into the mind of the consumer here, and we did this with a very scientific and expensive
very expensive
consumer study by a
Right.
major business university
Right.
a couple of years ago, and we're going to share with you a bit about that. Okay? But first, before we get to that, I want to explain a little of the methodology. There are two terms that you should be somewhat familiar with: conjoint analysis and regression analysis. Now, with conjoint analysis, what it does is, without getting far off into the mathematics of it, is it allows a person to make sense out of a big pile of data, okay?
Big pile.
Big pile, right? And it allows you to sort out the importances versus the unimportances, okay? And it allows you also to make use of it. What are you going to do with this stuff?
Well, let's give them an example.
Right.
Let's say that we asked a question on the survey, and the survey said, how would you rate a dentist who was right down the street from your office, had Saturday hours, had convenient, friendly parking, convenient financing options, treated children, and did ortho,
and was the cheapest
and was the lowest priced dentist in
dentist
town?
in the world.
Okay, and you send that out as a question. And what do you think you're going to get? You're going to get yes, send me that dentist.
Right.
And that's not going to, the point is that's not going to mean anything.
It's not going to help
It's
you.
not going to help you.
What are you going to do with that data?
Right.
In fact, why even bother asking? You already know the answers to those questions, right? So we wanted to drill down a little further into the minds of the consumer.
A lot further.
Right. And it probably doesn't sound surprising, but dentists or consumers don't choose a dentist for just one reason.
No.
There are multiple reasons that go into a choice. And within those multiple reasons, there are things that have more weight or value than others. It would be valuable to know what those weighted decision points are.
Right.
And that's what this study revealed to us.
Right. Consider it points. Right?
Yeah.
Let's just simplify it. Let's say that the most attractive dentist could possibly be is 100 points, right? And there's several categories of attributes that a dentist can have. And each one of them is worth a certain number of points toward 100.
Right. In other words, it's a certain percentage toward you being the ideal dentist.
Right.
The ideal dentist is what Mark just described. You're close, you're cheap, you're da-da-da-da-da, right? So how close can you get to that ideal is basically what this regression analysis was about.
Yeah, the regression analysis also, the way it works is you ask the question like I gave you before. Um, Closest dentist, best hours, best conveniences, best pricing. Of course, almost everybody in the survey is going to choose that dentist. But then you just take one question out and change it. What if it was the closest dentist, best hours, best conveniences, saw my whole family, never referred out, but he wasn't the most or the least expensive dentist in town?
Right.
So you ask that question with one change, and then you get a different score.
Right.
And then you keep changing one of those questions at a time. That's what conjoint regression analysis is. And that's how you can quantify what really matters to people. It's not that you just go out and say, hey, would you like to see the greatest dentist in the world? Of course, everybody's going to say yes. So we know that dentists as a whole are very research-based and very scientific and science-oriented people. So we want to make sure you understood how this study was conducted. And it was conducted in a regression format on a conjoint analysis. And if you need to, you can just Google conjoint analysis.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to learn exactly how it works, you can go through and do that. But we're not going to we're not going to explain it to you.
You see, we do a lot of testing. We have for 22 years, but it would still drive us crazy because we didn't necessarily have it exactly quantified.
Right.
About why. That's what we want to know. Why do people choose a particular dentist? What matters most? What matters least? We wanted to quantify that, and we finally did.
Right. Well,
we're going to share it with you today.
Right. What we knew was if we changed this radio ad to this segment, to this rotation, to this number of seconds, we knew that it created X more results. That's what our testing does in all the mediums. Mm-hmm. But it didn't tell us why. This tells us the answer to the reason why. So really, how do people choose a dentist? Mm-hmm. What matters the most to what matters the least?
And everything in between.
And everything in between. Okay, so before we go through the results of the survey, let's set up what we studied. What were the characteristics of the people that we surveyed? One of them was their education level. Well, there was no high school graduate, some college graduate, all the way on up. Mm-hmm. Age into 10 categories, gender, male or female, their income levels. They had to state their income levels, and the culture or their ethnicity. Those were the main 5 variables that we studied within the demographics of the people who took the survey. Once you have your segments of the respondents all categorized, now you have to have the dentists and their marketable attributes categorized. The dental attributes, the marketable attributes that we studied were convenience, and there's several conveniences, and we broke them all out. Technologies.
Lots of technology.
Tons, and we broke them all out. The experience of the dentist. In other words, let me break that out for you, give you some examples. How many years they were serving the community, if they ever provided military service, did that matter? There was some other experiences, whether they've been published, whether they've been on the local media.
Oh, their continuing education.
Continuing education, that was all under experience. The price, whether they were perceived to be a low-cost provider, a discount provider of dental services, someone in the middle, or perceived as having a high price point.
Right. And keep in mind, this is all about the consumer's perception.
Right, not reality.
Prices are not generally available to the dental consumer from practice to practice if they're shopping. I know you get asked how much is a crown and how much is this, how much is that, but generally speaking, their perception of price is based on the way your practice looks.
Or the way your promotion looks.
Or the way your promotion.
Right. That gives a big signal.
Yeah.
Like if it looks cheap, you're going to be perceived as cheap. If it looks like, if you have a picture of you with Roman columns and you are the most prominent design element within your ad, and there's, a fan below you blowing your hair into the wind, and the whole ad is about cosmetic dentistry and restorative dentistry, then you're going to be perceived as expensive.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all about perception here. All right. The survey results are reality. Those are real numbers of the perception. Okay, that's just trying to make that.
Quantifying a perception.
That's right, quantifying a perception. We understand that it's a little odd to think about, but that is true. The distance from the practice. Then again, that goes into conveniences. So those are all notable variables within the study that we use to gauge how many points you get toward being a 100 dentist. 100 being the most marketable dentist on the planet.
Right.
This next slide that you're looking at is a culmination of the data. Now, we have to warn you here, we have to bring you back to what we said earlier on in this segment. You see 35%, for example, underneath the price category. That does not mean that 35% of the respondents thought price as the most important factor. That's not what it means. What it means is that if you are perceived to have a reasonable price point, you are 35 points to your way of being the ideal dentist, right? So if you look down that whole column and you add all those percentages up, you're going to come up to 100 points, right? Another key on this slide, I'm going to take a couple of minutes here to discuss this because this is a very important point, and this is one of the things that dentists do in our work. Again, we work with dentists all over the US, all over Canada, Australia, basically almost all over the world. And they will come to us and they'll say, my area is different. My patients are different. And if you look to the right of this slide, you're going to see that we broke out culture. Now, the most prominent culture was Caucasian versus Hispanic because population-wise, that was the most prominent. But there was no significant difference depending on culture on any of the answers in any category. Whether it was price, technology, conveniences, it didn't matter. Now, we are going to belabor this point significantly later on in this segment and in the future segments. The point or the takeaway here is that dental consumers make their choices regardless of geography, ethnicity, even if you really look at the numbers, almost economically. I mean, there's dental consumers who are of little means who make great dental decisions on choosing a healthcare provider. So there's another perception in your mind, the dentist, where I have to only promote to rich people. Okay, that's not necessarily true. Okay.
And another way that your takeaway from this might go is that, your demographics are different from area to area, but your people aren't. People have the same motivations, whether they're black, white, Hispanic, whether they're Canadian mom or American mom. They have the same motivations and the same concerns. Now, if you take a look at this scale, this will immediately tell you what's important to the dental consumer and what's least important. But if you manage to hit a home run on every one of these things, you're 100% ideal.
You are the ideal dentist in the minds of the consumer. So what Howie's saying is if you're perceived to have a price value point that's best in your marketplace, you're 35 points.
You're already 35 points.
You're already 35 points towards 100.
And we're not saying that means the lowest price. You could be the highest price.
We're going to break that down later.
Right.
We're going to break down price later.
But this scale was the missing piece to understanding the mind of the dental consumer. And that scale, you might want to jot this down, or you're going to get
Yeah, it's going to be in their notes.
You'll be in the notes.
Right. You might want to circle this note or dog ear this page of your workbook, because
it's a very important list.
Very important list, because as you learn about this and as you consider your future promotion, you're going to want to make sure that you have pieces of each of these now, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're not going to just be about price. You're not going to be just about technology. You're not going to be just about conveniences, right? You're not going to be just about bragging about how you were on Channel 3 last month talking about perio's linked to heart disease, okay? You can't do one of these things, because then you're only, 18% toward being an ideal dentist.
Yeah.
You have to have a mix of all these things. And that's really going to become important when we talk about design, which is in segment 3 or 4.
Yeah.
So definitely pay attention to this aspect of this analysis when we talk about design, because then the design end is going to make 100% sense.
Design, the way you design your promotions, whether it's radio, TV, direct mail, whatever, should be based on this scale.
Right.
And we're going to show you how to do that.
You should also consider the other promotions that you see around you. I mean, that's probably that's a great exercise for a dentist to do, is to copy this page of the workbook. Look at your local newspaper, look at the mailer you might get, listen to the radio or what have you, and then look at it and then measure it against this note in your workbook. Does this ad cover price, technology, conveniences, ethnicity? Is this dentist trying to be the 100-point dentist? That's another great way you could use this slide for your own education. So copy this slide, bring it with you, put it in your briefcase. This is the mother of all slides, so to speak. Now, once you have your master slide, once you have your master list of marketable attributes and the points that you get for being the best of each, now you take each one and you start to break it out. And obviously the first one that we broke out was price, because like you, we thought dental consumers were overly concerned about price. Not so.
Not so.
Not so.
Concerned, but not overly.
Right. Well, not nearly to the extent that we believe you think they are, and certainly not to the extent that we admit as marketers for dentistry for 23 years that we thought they were.
Yeah.
What they are is confused. And when you break out price and you ask the question, well, what matters the most? Is it a covered price, in other words, insurance? Mm-hmm. Is it the low price dentist, the medium low, the medium high, or the high? Now, hardly any respondents wanted the highest priced dentist. Look at the score for highest priced dentist. You're not very far to being the ideal dentist. But now ask yourself why. Why wouldn't the market look for the highest priced dentist? And the answer is, and we're going to talk about this for the next 8 segments or however many segments this is going to be, is they don't understand the value.
There's a value gap.
There's a value gap, and we're going to go into that later on in the other segments. But look at the difference between medium and low and medium high. There's hardly any difference.
There's not much.
There's not much.
What can you take from that? You could probably raise your fees a little bit, and nobody will ever know.
That's right.
They're not concerned about it.
And if we asked the audience for people to raise their hands and say, how many people in the audience believe that dental consumers think or want everything to be covered by insurance, everybody would raise their hands, right? I would raise my hand, you would raise my hand. It's an entitlement.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, of course they want everything to be covered by insurance. And, sometimes the conversation that everything isn't covered by dental insurance becomes a pretty dicey conversation, because the person who has the insurance plan thinks that everything should be covered.
Right.
So, of course, the respondents to this survey will love it if everything was covered by their insurance. So that makes perfect sense. That did not surprise us. What did surprise us in the data was the number of people that really were looking for high quality dentistry didn't equate it to price.
Right.
And we're going to get into that a little bit later. But the difference between medium low and medium high was almost nil.
Right.
And that tells you it's a confused marketplace. They don't know the value of what they're buying, which is a gigantic opening for you. And
it's very good news, actually.
right.
Another thing to point out, I think this slide points it out as well, is once insurance was taken care of,
Oh, right.
taken off the table,
Right.
and by that we mean you either got their $1,000 or their $1,500 in benefits, and then that was done. You accepted it, whatever, that's done. Now what are they interested in? They're much more interested in quality dentistry than the cost of it.
Right.
They got their money's worth with their insurance, by golly, and they're happy with that. But after insurance is out of the picture, price is much less of a concern than it was even before.
So it becomes a value
Proposition.
importance, right, at that point.
If they think they are getting value for their service, they're very willing to pay for it.
Right. They just need to understand the value.
Right.
And that's what dentistry's not doing. Okay. And that's going to be another key component to this whole series, is defining and building that value, because they really don't mind the pricing if they have the value. It's that perception that they don't have yet.
You know, it's kind of like this. When you finish a person's case and they're all teary-eyed holding up the mirror, you know, then they value it, right? They think you're a god. They're happy as can be, and they love you for it. But that's after you've finished their case. It's before they even pick up the phone. That's what we're talking about. That's the area that people are clueless. They don't know what dentistry can do for them. And it's actually an opportunity, because you can go in and fill that value gap up,
right,
and make dentistry valuable to people, and then they'll pay your fees.
All right, we've discovered the topic of price. We've taken price and dropped it out into 4 or 5 categories. We talked about how that is not quite as important as you might think, but now we're going to support that. So how do you do that? What you do is you take the demographics. Who is price important to? What category of consumer is most concerned about price? Which category is less concerned about price? And looking at the slide that you have on your computer monitor right now, you're going to see, you're going to start to see a theme. You're going to see a theme, men and women. Men, I mean, let's face it, right? You and I, we go to a healthcare provider. We are probably dragged there by some female that's in our life. Stuff could be hanging off of us.
Right.
Okay. And
just fix it, Doc.
Just fix it.
We're transactional.
Well, we are very transactional based. We almost don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. Almost.
Yeah.
To a certain point. That's the way it is. And you know what? You know that's the way it is. Because how does it work in your office? The mom calls, probably makes the first appointment for either herself or the children, closely followed by either herself or the children, and then in comes dad kicking and screaming 6 months later. Right? I'm sure you all witness this in your own dental practices every day. Well, this is what this data tells us too, that covered price is a little bit less important to mom than it is to dad. Dad wants it covered. I want to get it all fixed. I don't want to pay for anything. Right. Mom, a little bit less. Elder patients, a little bit less. Education-wise, a little bit less. So the numbers clearly point now that we're starting to bring out subset markets. We're starting to understand, or not starting, we're cementing understanding of not only what the dental consumer is looking for, but what segment of the dental market is wanting what. That's what these next few slides are going to show you. How about low price? Men care a lot more about fees. We already established that. And then you can see the rest of the demographics, the age. Now, let's be realistic. If you're an adolescent, your parents are probably covering your fees anyway, so you could probably care less. all right?
Heck, if you're 28 years old and living at home,
Yeah, you probably don't care either.
You don't
okay?
care either.
Right. So, there's some noise in these numbers, but this is the associative research and the data points that came out of all of these questions across all of the demographics. High price by demographics. Female and young people are much less price sensitive than the average. It clearly comes out on the data. The higher education, less sensitive. The elder, probably because, or certainly contributory, would be because they may not have dental insurance, okay? But you can see it. You can see what we're saying through all the data that we collected after the analysis was over. So here's your takeaway so far. Your takeaway is that your market is mom, females 28 to 68 years old.
Right.
I don't think anybody's going to argue with that, right?
Right.
90% of the phone calls that come into your dental practice are females.
That's right.
Or a male that was driven there by a female. Okay, right? So 90%. Moderate education levels. We don't have to go after all the professors of universities. That's not your market. And moderate to upper income. This is a perception by dentists that think they'll drive around a market area and see the perception of money. They'll see McMansions in a development and say, I want to promote there. Not necessarily.
Yep.
There's tons of moms in that middle segment that choose healthcare providers properly.
Right.
I mean, and
it also tells you that if you're trying to, if your message to the public, either intended or otherwise, is that you're only interested in supermodels and CEOs, the rich, you will be penalized heavily for that, because they'll look at the piece, whatever it is, or listen to the radio and go, gee, it sounds like a great dentist, but way too pricey for me, even though there are no prices stated in the brochure or the radio spot. So
right.
it's about that kind of a perception. The cosmetic market, since the recession, has taken what, a 28% hit?
28% hit.
Okay, so that tells you at once that the more broad family market is deeper and wider. The cosmetic-only market, even in the best of times, best of economic times, is still only 5-8% of the entire dental market, right?
Right.
So it's lucrative, but it's thin.
Right.
The family, moms, middle, moderate, even upper income areas and people, that's where your market is. It's deep and it's wide.
Yeah, let me support some of what he's saying too, because I'm sure there's dentists on the other end of this computer screen going, yeah, but I want to do that kind of work.
Oh, sure.
Okay. You do that kind of work by surrounding yourselves with the right part of the market. What you were doing between 2002 and 2006, during the boom days, right, when everybody had a credit card and they could pay it off with home equity, right? You could get away with having a message of just cosmetics. You can't do that now. That money's no longer there. And the middle of the market, those moms want, need, desire that type of work anyway. You just won't get it tomorrow. You have to generate a relationship, generate trust. Half a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. I'll ask the audience, consider this. Raise your hand if you want. I mean, do you mind if a big case comes in 3 years from now? I don't know any dentist that would say, no, I don't want a big case 3 years from now. So that middle segment market is what Howie was talking about. That is by far the most fruitful market, and don't believe for a second that there's not big cases in that market, because there's a boatload of them. All right, you're just going to see, more people.
Yeah.
Okay, now then we took technology. The technology actually surprised us a little bit.
Yeah, it did.
Technology was the second most important thing to the dental consumer.
Right.
And probably because in the last 20 years, the technology curve has ramped up quickly, very quickly. So we're going to break out technology. The most important part of this slide in your workbook is it doesn't really matter if you're perceived as the person with the most technology or the first person with the technology, but look how penalized you get if you don't mention it.
Mm-hmm.
Look how many points you lose if you don't have anything mentioning technology in your practice, in your communication to the dental consumer. You get penalized heavily.
This is actually quite good news, because that tells you at once that if you can explain in patient-friendly terms what a particular technology or treatment does for the patient, they value it.
Right.
They think you're up to date, modern, and they want that technology. And this is the part that just blew us away on this. Within this questioning of the respondents, we pose questions such as, if there was a dental technology where you could go in and get your crown in a single visit, i.e. CEREC, we didn't use CEREC or E4D or any brand name, but we just posed that question. Would that have a value or weight to you in your decision of choosing that practice? Off the charts.
Off the charts.
And I'll tell you what was kind of scary is that most people didn't even know that technology existed.
It was over 70%. They had no idea.
Unbelievable, right? I mean, to us, we eat, sleep, and breathe it. We know what a CEREC crown is, or an E4D, etc. The general consumer does not know. They don't know.
You know what they do know? They know that blue gunk that they have to put in their mouth to take an impression.
Right.
That's what they know.
Yeah.
All right. And they know how it gags, and they have to sit there. It stinks and it tastes terrible.
Yeah.
They've gotten that far.
Yeah.
Okay.
And similarly with other technologies, what if you could get your teeth straightened without metal braces? Would that be a blah, blah, blah? Would that be a good choice for you? Yeah, absolutely. They love it. That probably due to the advertising that Invisalign's been doing, consumer advertising. That was a little more, they were aware of that.
Right. More aware.
More aware of that.
Not completely
But there was still a good percentage that had never heard of it.
Right.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, that's an opening. That's
an
that
opening.
value gap. We're going to keep saying value gap, value gap, value gap. It's because they don't know, they don't understand, and the sad point is nobody's telling them. Yeah. But it's not sad, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because
you're going to tell them.
Right. It's an opening. It's an opening all the way around. So what did we know before? In our own testing, we knew that price was going to be number one. We knew it. We knew it from our own testing.
But it's only a 35 weight.
It's only a 35 weight. You're only 35 points on your way to being a great perceived dentist and a number one choice. Mm-hmm. And 35 in 100 is not that much. We also knew that everybody wanted insurance to cover everything, right? Mm-hmm. We knew that females cared more about the value and the benefits than price. That wasn't a surprise. Mm-hmm. We knew that higher earnings and higher education lowered price sensitivity. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a big surprise. What did we confirm that we thought? We thought technology was a major factor.
Yeah.
But we didn't know. We didn't have any quantified independent evidence, which is one of the main reasons why we paid for this study. We knew that males were more price sensitive. We just didn't know by how much. Because there's advertising opportunities out there directed toward males, mm-hmm. right? You can put a TV ad on ESPN mm-hmm. if you want. We wouldn't recommend it, but you could. We also wanted to find out about the ethnicity. We wanted to find out about this. My patients are different. My market is different. Mm-hmm. We hear that all the time. And what we ended up learning is, no, it's not. Mom is going to make her decisions based on being mom, mm-hmm. her genetic makeup. You're not going to change that if you're in Sarasota, Florida, or Calgary, Ontario, or Calgary, Canada. Mm-hmm. You're not going to change the genetic makeup of mom.
No.
What surprised us? Well, what really surprised us was that pricing question, and when we took insurance away, when insurance wasn't even part of the answer. When we said, what's the most important thing for you? No insurance now. You don't have that as a choice. Low, medium high, highest price. When insurance wasn't part of the equation, all the moms moved right over to value, and the price between low, and medium high and high were much less when insurance wasn't involved at all. Okay, that made us feel good about the dental market as a whole. They just don't know why the value. They don't understand the value, but you can tell them. Technology has basically surpassed convenience, not by much. If you add up all the convenience categories and technology, they're neck and neck. But that tells you that you can't not have both of them mentioned in your promotion. You have to have both of them somewhere in your promotion. Education. Education surprised us a little bit because one of the first things you have to do when you promote almost anything, really, not just dentistry, is establish some level of respect and trust. And prior, we thought that additional CE, ongoing CE, the time and the money it takes and the investment that it makes would communicate to the patient or the prospective patient a degree of trust,
right?
A level of certainty in the treatment they're going to receive.
And it does. It's just not as important as we thought and as you thought too, I believe.
It's
to many people, you say Las Vegas Institute, which is a fantastic CE place right here in Vegas, and they think it's a rehab center.
Right, they don't know.
Drug rehab.
Right, here's the bottom line, okay? The dental consumer, they know you're a dentist, and they know that you're required to go to dental school.
They assume you went to school.
They assume you went to school to get a dental degree before you started advertising your dental practice to them, okay? Some of them wonder why you have to go back to school. That's a consideration that we never really considered, okay? So now we're not telling you, we're proud of you for doing CE. Your family should be, your whole team should be, your patients should be. There's nothing wrong with it. It's almost mandatory. Go do your CE. We're just saying in your advertising, don't make the whole theme of your advertising about the continuing education that you've taken, because the consumer, it's going to go right over their head, okay? That's a big thing that we learned in this study.
Right.
So what should you do now? You should definitely emphasize what the market is telling you is important to them, obviously. De-emphasize what the market is telling you that's not important to them. So if the ethnicity is in your advertising, if your advertising is all about continuing education and all the awards you won or the schools you went to, probably not. Okay, pull some of that stuff out, open up some space, put some other conveniences and technologies and things that matter to mom, make those more prominent within your advertising. Another thing you can do is work on improving the offerings of your practice to reflect what the market wants. And in the next segment, I believe it's the next segment, might be the third segment, we're going to have a master list of the marketable attributes that you probably have.
Probably have most of them.
Now, most of them, okay? And then once you're done with your marketable attributes, then you refine your message. So you have a balance, right? You have a balance of trust, respect, conveniences, technologies. And it's a whole story that is not just one-sided. You're not, like Howie said, you're not going after supermodels and CEOs. Right?
They will show up.
Oh, yeah.
But you don't target them.
But you don't target them, right? Okay, you got to get on mom's level, and that's where mom's level is. Mom wants those benefits in those categories. She doesn't want to have one or two. She needs to see 3, 4, 5, 8, so she can choose which one's most important to her. That's another, when we get into the design, we're going to go through
why that's important.
Right, why that's important. Okay, now what to do with technology. When you promote technology, you promote the benefits of the technology. Believe me, something as old as the intraoral camera is news to 70% of the dental consumers out there. Nobody else is telling them. You promote the benefits, not the gizmo. We see advertising that has a picture of a CEREC machine all the time, and it says CEREC 3D.
What's that mean to the dental consumer?
Who cares?
They don't know.
Right, they don't know what that is. They have no clue.
But they do understand crowns in an hour, single visit crowns with no goopy impression material. They do understand that.
That's why technology and conveniences are often connected.
Very much so.
Okay? Technology and respect and trust are connected too. Diagnodent. Doctor purchased this device to find cavities years before you could find them with an X-ray and an Explorer.
That's a great benefit.
That's an incredible benefit to a mom. And the connection is, it's not the technology. It's, wow, this person invested money in finding cavities years before so they could save me money, right? You have all kinds of connections there with your technology. With conveniences, you have to uncover them all. We're going to do that in the next segment. Conveniences can be connected to technology. Conveniences can be connected to procedures. Sedation dentistry is a great 6-month smiles. Great example. Conveniences can be connected to price. Convenient, friendly financing, right? Even up to convenient parking for people in downtown areas. I mean, some areas it costs $27 to park your car to go to the dentist.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, okay? With your price and your benefits, you can promote dentistry based on price. You can promote dentistry based on the value. You can promote dentistry independent. In other words, you can promote dentistry based on price. You can promote dentistry based on value. What you shouldn't do is promote them both together.
Right.
Okay? That's a mistake we see almost everywhere.
Right.
You'll have this beautiful piece done with a big, gigantic design-altering price deal. Doesn't make any sense. It confuses both sides of the market. And we're going to go into that when we go into design. Here's the bottom line question to this segment. Do you believe promoting benefits will work? Are there enough people out there that will respond? Where do you find these people? Isn't it more risky to promote the benefits rather than the price? I mean, when you promote based on price, the phone rings almost instantly, right? And do you think Howie and I are totally insane? Well, for that, you have to go to the next segment.
All right.
We're glad you took the time to look at this first segment of the Dental Marketing Summit series. Hopefully, you were able to pull away some of the most important pieces. This really was the most important setup, prerequisite to understanding how to promote a dental practice efficiently, effectively, and properly. Hopefully, we'll have you take the next set of our series. You can take them one at a time. They're about an hour in length each. They're categorized by subject. The subjects actually very much follow the chapters in our book, which you'll get when after you've completed your last segment and you've done your CE test, and they're going to send us an email and have us, mail you a book. The book is going to be, reading material to cement all this verbal information that we've presented to you in all the segments. The next segment, now that you understand a lot more about the dental consumer, we hope, than you did before, and you understand that your perception and their perceptions are not aligned, we are going to begin to build the right marketing plan for your practice. So the next segment is about the basics and some intermediate tasks to setting up the right marketing plan for your specific practice. Thank you for watching.